We have Praggnanandhaa making his way to the playing venue with his second Vaibhav Suri. Pragg in good spirits. It's wonderful to see how players are coping with this high pressure situation even when the results are not going their way. Like Pragg lost his previous round to Anish Giri, and in comes the man in form, Javokhir Sindarov. He comes in with his second, Mukhiddin Madaminov, and they are in great form. Sindarov has scored already 5 wins and 3 draws in 8 rounds. 4 draws. 5 wins and 4 draws in 9 rounds. So he is on 7 points and he's entering in to the playing venue. A win today would most likely seal the deal for Sindarov. He has a 1.5 point lead, a pat on the back on Javokhir as Pragg enters inside the playing hall. It's all quiet as Anish Giri walks around. Pragg writes down his score sheet. Javokhir comes in. Pragg versus Javokhir. What an encounter this is. They first played against each other back in 2013 at the World Under-8 Championship in Alain. And then they played in Durban, and then they played in Under-10. And by the way, the first move on their board is being done by Boris Gelfand, the legend, and behind you can see Vishy Anand. What a frame this is. Sindarov takes back the pawn. The players get ready for the big encounter, a handshake, and this, dear friends, is the Lotus Chess game of the day. If you are looking for an app to improve your chess, then Lotus Chess could be the one. Because many of the apps teach you how to play chess or how to improve, but Lotus Chess is one where you have to think, make the moves on the board, and so it is very, very useful. It reinforces in you some of the things that can really help you improve. And so, from the link in the description, you can download the app that is free for Android and iOS. Now back to the game. Sindarov opens with d4. Pragg plays his knight out to f6. Javokhir plays his pawn to c4. And Pragg continues with what he has been doing in this tournament with pawn to e6. The knight comes out to f3. And Pragg plays his pawn to d5. When Pragg was white against Javokhir in the second round of this tournament, or the third round of this tournament, they also had played the Queen's Gambit from opposite colors. And bishop f4 was the system that was chosen there, although Javokhir had gone for bishop e7 and not knight d7. Pragg goes for bishop b4, and now the game converts into Ragozin territory. We have c takes d5 taken. Black goes e takes d5. And now Sindarov simply plays e3. If he gets the opportunity, he would love to play bishop d3, short castle, and finish his development. But Pragg goes actively in, knight e4. And whenever the knight comes to e4, it not only puts pressure on the knight on c3, which after queen c2 you've protected, but already you can start pushing your kingside pawns. g5 played by Pragg. The main line now is bishop e5 to hassle the rook on h8, but Sindarov seems to have forgotten or missed his prep. He goes bishop g3. And now h5 played in order to trap the bishop with pawn to h4. Javokhir goes bishop d3. Wow, the game is sharpening up. h4 on the board. The bishop now does not have too many squares to go to. It goes to e5, f6 traps the bishop. So bishop takes e4. If hg3, you go bishop takes d5. So Pragg plays d takes e4, attacking the knight. And now you must take the pawn with the queen. So queen takes e4 with a check. The king has to move away, king f8. And the only move that makes sense here is bishop e5. Now white is a pawn up. So for Pragg, f6 is a must to trap the bishop. And he plays it. The bishop is running out of squares here. And the only logical move now is to go knight takes g5. A beautiful move. If you take on g5, h8 hangs. If you take on e5, knight e6 check, loses the queen. So you have to play carefully. Pragg first takes on c3. It's a check. So pawn takes c3 by Javokhir. And now the only logical move, knight takes e5. It's a sharp line. We are down to 15 moves. Pragg has 147, Javokhir has 131. And now Javokhir takes d takes e5. At this moment, you can take the knight on g5. F takes g5 is on the board. Pawn to f4. And you could even castle and play f4, but Javokhir pushes f4 and Pragg goes h3. Very interesting move. Pragg has an extra piece. He's trying to soften up the king side. Rook d1 attacks the queen. Now the queen can go to e8 or e7. Pragg decides queen e7, a logical move. Now g2 can be attacked, so f5 can be pushed, but Sindarov goes g3. He keeps his structure intact. I like the move bishop g4 now, attacking the rook here, and after rook d4 to bring the rook into the game, rook e8. But Pragg takes on f4, and this is a slightly weird move by Pragg, because in a way it's inviting Javokhir to castle. Of course e takes f4 looks nice, but actually after bishop g4 black is just better. The main point is not to improve your structure. The main point is to go after the black king. And that's the only way you can do by castling here. Rook takes f4 now is hanging. Rook h6, a nice move played by Pragg. He wants that f6 square be covered. So rook h6 makes a lot of sense. Check now. Okay, if you play king e8, the king is very weak. And queen d5 with the threat of queen g8 is just game over. So the only logical move is king g7, but he goes king g8. I wonder why he didn't play king g7 here, Pragg. Rook f1 played. And now it's important to play bishop e6. An important move here. But Pragg blunders with bishop d7. The thing is, if bishop e6, rook f6, you have queen h7, takes, and even this rook endgame where you are a few pawns down, rook d8, and black has enough activity. But bishop d7 is a losing move. The reason is that Sindarov has a tactic now. Rook to f7. It's a crazy move, but it works. Rook f7, and now of course queen takes has to be calculated. But if you go like, yes, he finds it, rook f6 on the board. If you go queen e6, then the rook comes to f6 with a very big attack. If you go to e8 now, then again rook f6 with a winning position here, because the king is too weak. So Pragg gives up his queen, and now if you look at the material balance, Pragg has a rook, two rooks, and a bishop for the queen, which is a lot of material. But Javokhir sees one move deeper. Queen check, attacks the rook and the king. So now you need to save it. King goes to g7. And now comes the very important move, queen g5. With this move, once again you have to protect the rook and the queen is going to e7 to get the bishop. Queen e7, check. King comes to g8, and now queen takes d7, and this position, although materially not so bad for black, is winning for white because of two reasons. One, that you have two extra pawns, and two, that the black king is very exposed. Rook f8, queen check. You can see Pragg's expression there. He knows that he is no longer in a good position, but he has to continue fighting. He goes king h8. And now just queen to b4. Javokhir does not even care. He just plays a4. And he asks Pragg, what do you want to do? The problem for black is that this rook cannot get active here because queen takes h3 is a check. Plays pawn to a5. Queen g5. Attacking the rook. Rook goes to h7. And pawn to e6, pushing forward. He goes rook to e8, and now boom, takes the pawn. If rook e6, then queen check and take the pawn on b7. So b6 played by Pragg. And Sindarov comes back to e5, giving a check. King comes to g8. And queen g5 check. Look at Sindarov's time. He has 39 minutes. Wow, he's just so fast. Rook g7. Queen f5. He's playing this so masterfully, right? Because now the h3 pawn is under pressure. Pragg is like, how long will I try to hold on to h3? So he goes rook e7, king f8, and now take the pawn on h3. Rook takes pawn. White has 3 extra pawns and king f2. If you take rook e3, I simply give a check and pick up the rook. So rook e7. Queen check. King f7. We've reached move 40 and the king side pawns start to advance. g4. And now white wants to go h4, g5, h5. Rook comes to e4. Check to the king. The king comes to g7. Now maybe just h4. He first gives a check to on g5. King f7. And king f3. A very nice move. With the idea of queen f5 and picking up the rook. You can't just give up the rook there. And now Pragg snatches the pawn on a4. Materially, Pragg is fighting back. He's now just 2 pawns down. Queen h6. It's a nice move. He's going g5, h5, g6 here. Brings his rook here to e5. Now g5 cannot be played as the e3 pawn would hang. So first a check. Ooh, he brings his queen back and plays it again. Queen h7. Check. King needs to move. But where? Pragg goes king f8. check to the king, king f7. And now e4, a nice little move. If takes, queen h7 and you pick up the rook. Pragg starts to push his queenside pawns, hoping that he can create some play there. But Sindarov's kingside pawns are just stronger. He goes h5. h6, h7 coming up. Pawn to c5. And now can we go even further down? Yes, that's what he plays. h6 on the board. Rook to g5. And now queen d8. With the idea of h7, h8 queen. He comes back with the rook. Queen check. And Praggnanandhaa now can go queen f8, king f8, but queen takes c5 is hanging. He's losing pawns. He resigns. Javokhir Sindarov scores his 6th win at the Candidates 2026, moves to 8 points out of 10. He scored more wins than any player has scored since 2013 in Candidates. He's now 2 points ahead of the field and he's very close to securing a match with Gukesh for the World Championship title. Amazing play by Javokhir Sindarov, and Pragg, well, he will be not so happy with his play today.